On a bright morning at Paris Island, a quiet janitor stood in the back row, watching his twin daughters become United States Marines. He expected nothing more than pride, a few tears, and a memory he'd carry forever. But everything changed the moment a USMC captain grabbed his arm and caught sight of a tattoo that should not have existed. A tattoo known only to Marines who survived the darkest streets of Fallujah. What happened next left the entire parade deck silent and revealed a truth no one was prepared for. Before we begin this unforgettable story of courage, humility, and the quiet strength of a single father, we have a question for you. Would you ever stand in the shadows to let someone you love shine? Comment below. And if you enjoy meaningful, heartwarming stories like this, consider subscribing. It helps us bring you more human moments, reminders that kindness still matters. Now let's begin. The morning sun over Paris Island had a way of softening even the hardest edges of the Marine Corps recruit depot. It slid across the immaculate parade deck, glinting off brass buttons and polished dress blues, casting long shadows behind the rows of recruits standing in perfect formation. A sea of families pressed along the ropes, parents, siblings, grandparents, some crying, some whispering prayers, all waiting for that proud moment when their recruit would finally become a Marine. And there, behind everyone else, in a faded brown janitor's shirt, pushing an old mop bucket that squeaked with every soft turn, stood Dave Carter. No one knew he was a billionaire. No one knew he owned one of the largest logistics companies in the country. No one knew he flew to South Carolina in a private jet, then changed clothes in the airport bathroom just to arrive unnoticed. All they saw was a simple, quiet janitor. And that was exactly how Dave wanted it. He wasn't here as a billionaire. He wasn't here as a CEO. He wasn't here as a man of influence. He was here as something far greater. A father watching his daughters Lily Carter and Hannah Carter graduate from the hardest boot camp in America. He leaned against the far wall, hands folded, heart full. The faint scent of floor cleaner clung to his shirt. He looked out at the parade deck, and for a moment, everything in his world felt right. Then, a shadow passed in front of him. A fast one, a confident one. Captain Avery Cole. Sharp, commanding, focused. Her dress blues immaculate, her posture straight as a rifle barrel. She moved through the families with practiced steps, offering respectful nods, answering questions about the ceremony, correcting a few teenagers who wandered too close to the recruit lanes. But when her eyes swept the back row, she caught sight of Dave. More specifically, she caught the glimpse of a tattoo peeking from under his short sleeve. A small symbol, a stylized insignia. One no civilian should know. One that belonged only to the men who fought in Fallujah and survived. Avery froze mid-step. No breath, no blinking, just shock, deep, visceral shock. When she reached him, her voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, where did you get that tattoo?" Dave stiffened. His hand instinctively tugged his sleeve down. He tried to smile, tried to look confused, tried to be the invisible janitor again. Just something from a long time ago. But Avery's eyes hardened. Because she recognized it. Because she couldn't be mistaken. Because that mark belonged to a Marine. Dave reminded her of a Marine who changed her life. A Marine she believed died honoring a promise. In one sharp motion, she grabbed his wrist. Gasps rippled through the families nearby. Dave didn't pull back. He couldn't. Because in her eyes, he saw something haunting. Recognition, pain, fear, and something else he hadn't seen directed at him in years. The parade deck fell strangely silent, as if the island itself felt the tension in the air. Avery's voice cracked as she spoke. That tattoo, only one man should have had that. And he died in Fallujah. So tell me, who are you? Dave swallowed hard. He wasn't ready to answer that question. Not yet. Not here. Not with his daughter's moments from becoming Marines. But fate had other plans. Because this moment, this accidental encounter, this fracture between past and present, would rewrite all their lives. Forever. The breeze that rolled across Paris Island suddenly felt colder. Marine recruits stood frozen in formation. Families whispered, unsure of what they'd just witnessed. But Captain Avery Cole wasn't thinking about the crowd, or the ceremony, or even the fact that she had just grabbed a stranger's wrist in front of half the base. No, her entire world had narrowed to one impossible sight. A Fallujah survivor's tattoo, on the arm of a man dressed as a janitor. A tattoo she had seen only once before. A tattoo worn by the man who saved her life. A tattoo she watched disappear into smoke and chaos and gunfire on the worst day of her career. So how could it be here? Avery's voice trembled with disbelief. Where did you get this? Who gave it to you? Dave's heart thudded beneath his ribs. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody was supposed to know. Nobody was supposed to recognize that symbol ever again. He gave the smallest, most fragile answer possible. My brother. Avery blinked. Her breath hitched. Her grip loosened, but she didn't let go. Your brother? Dave nodded once, slowly, and Avery felt the ground beneath her shift. Because if that symbol came from who she thought it did, if Dave looked even remotely like the man she remembered, then she was standing face to face with someone connected to the greatest guilt she carried. Flashback begins. Fallujah, 2004. Thick smoke curled up from burning vehicles. The air was gritty with dust and blood. Bullets cracked against concrete. And Avery, young, terrified, still learning what war really meant, was pinned behind a crumbling wall with two Marines. One of them was a tall man with calm eyes. A man with a steady voice even in hell. A man who touched that same tattoo before raising his rifle. If anything happens to me, he told her, you get home. You make something of your life. Promise me. She promised. 5 minutes later, he took the hit meant for her. And to this day, she believed she didn't deserve to live. Back to present. Avery's eyes glistened as she stared at Dave. What was his name? She whispered. Dave's voice was quiet, barely above the wind. Michael Carter. Avery's knees almost buckled. Oh my God. Your brother was Staff Sergeant Carter. Dave didn't answer. He didn't need to. The pain in his eyes said it all. The tattoo. The resemblance. The way he stood, steady and silent. It all clicked. Avery released his wrist slowly, her hand shaking. But she wasn't done. Not even close. Someone nearby whispered, Is everything okay, Captain? But Avery didn't respond. She took a step closer to Dave, lowering her voice so only he could hear. I was there when your brother died. I know what he did. I owe my life to him. Dave inhaled sharply. His eyes flicked down. A single tear formed, but he blinked it away before it could fall. He had spent years keeping Michael's memory buried deep, where it couldn't hurt as much. Today, all of that armor cracked. Then, the command rang out across the field. Company, attention. The graduation ceremony was beginning. Trumpets blared. Drums thundered. The recruits' boots struck the pavement in perfect unison. And two young women, Lily and Hannah, marched proudly to their places among their platoon. Families cheered wildly. But Dave didn't move. Because Captain Avery Cole, a Marine officer with steel in her spine, was looking at him as if she'd just seen a ghost. And a miracle. And a wound she thought would never heal. Avery spoke again, softer this time. Why are you here dressed like that? Dave swallowed. He should have lied. Should have walked away. Should have stayed invisible. But something about Avery, her honesty, her pain, her sudden vulnerability brought out the truth instead. Because I didn't want my daughters to feel different. I wanted them to shine today, not me. Avery's eyes softened. A Marine as tough as iron. Beginning to melt. But before she could reply, a voice thundered over the loudspeakers. Families, please take your seats. Avery stepped back slowly, but her eyes never left Dave's. We're not done, she whispered. Not even close. Dave nodded. Because for the first time, he understood something he never expected. This woman knew a part of his life no one else in the world did. And fate had just thrown them together for a reason. If you're watching this, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever kept a part of your past hidden to protect someone you love? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. By the time the band finished the opening march, the tension between Dave and Captain Avery Cole had become a silent storm, one no one else on the parade deck could see. But both of them felt like a weight in their chests. Avery stood ramrod straight near the reviewing platform, fulfilling her duty as an officer. But her eyes drifted again and again toward the quiet janitor in the back. Dave had resumed, pushing his mop bucket. To the crowd, he was invisible. To Avery, he was the single thread tying her to the day she had spent years trying to forget. Lily and Hannah Carter marched forward in perfect precision. Hannah, strong-jawed, fierce, unbreakable. Lily, softer-eyed, thoughtful, steady. They looked unstoppable in their dress blues. A family behind Dave whispered, Those twins trained harder than half the men in their company. Dave bit the inside of his cheek to stop from smiling too wide. He felt pride bubbling in his chest, warm, almost painful in its intensity. But every time he stole a glance at Avery, that warmth was shadowed by something else. Questions, fear, memories of Michael, and worst of all, the look Avery had given him when she said, "I owe my life to him." No one had said those words aloud to Dave in almost 20 years. From her position at the platform, Avery's heart hammered beneath her uniform. Her rational mind insisted, "Stop looking at him. This is graduation. Focus. You're a captain. Act like it." But her emotions whispered something else. That tattoo. That face. That name. She clenched her jaw. Duty pushed her one way. Guilt pulled her another. And beneath it all, something unexpected flickered. Curiosity. Recognition. A strange pull toward the quiet man who shouldn't exist. But Avery shoved it down, forcing her attention back to the ceremony. For now, the parade deck erupted with cheers as new Marines stormed forward to embrace their families. Mothers sobbed. Fathers shouted proudly. Some recruits broke their stoic posture and burst into tears against their parents' shoulders. Lily and Hannah scanned the crowd, and Hannah spotted Dave first. "Dad." Her voice cracked with joy as she sprinted at him, Lily close behind. Dave barely had time to drop the mop handle before his daughters slammed into him, arms wrapped tight around his chest. He lifted them both, one in each arm, and for a moment, the disguise slipped. For a moment, he looked like the billionaire he truly was. Strong, fearless, deeply protective. Avery saw the whole thing. Her breath caught. The quiet janitor was a giant of a father. She tried to stop herself. She failed. Something stronger than discipline pulled her across the crowd toward the family reunion. When she reached them, she cleared her throat softly. Dave turned, still holding Lily and Hannah close. Avery swallowed. "Congratulations, Marines." Her voice was steady, but her eyes told a different story. Hannah saluted proudly. Lily beamed. "Thank you, ma'am." Dave gently set them down. Avery glanced at him. He looked away first. A small, nervous motion, almost shy. Avery wasn't used to men looking away from her, especially not men who carried pain like armor. She took a breath. "Mr. Carter." Dave stiffened. She knew his name. Of course she did. She was an officer. She was thorough. She was trained to notice details others missed. But Dave still felt exposed. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately after this?" Lily and Hannah exchanged confused looks. "Dad? What's going on?" Dave forced a smile. "Just Marine stuff, girls." His voice didn't hide the tremor. Avery stepped closer, dropping her tone. "I need to speak to you about your brother. It's important." The world around Dave suddenly went distant and blurry. The cheering, the bands, the reunions, all faded into static. "Captain Cole, this isn't a good time." Avery's jaw tightened. "Sir, with respect, you don't understand what that tattoo means to me." Dave finally met her gaze. There it was again. That pull, that unexplainable connection. Raw, human, frightening in its clarity. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Dad, is something wrong?" Avery stepped back immediately, shame flashing in her eyes. "No, nothing's wrong. Enjoy your day, Marines. You earned it." But her voice cracked, and that tiny crack said everything. She was losing control of the walls she spent years building. She turned and walked away fast, too fast for her rank and composure. But she didn't go far. She stood near the bleachers, hands behind her back, staring at the ground. Waiting. Whether she even realized she was waiting, she couldn't say. But fate wasn't done with them. Not even close. "Dad," Hannah said slowly. "Why did that captain look at you like she knew you?" Dave exhaled. A long, tired exhale. Because he didn't have the courage yet to say the words out loud. "She knew your uncle. She knew things I never told you." Instead, he whispered, "Girls, some people from my past just weren't supposed to see me today." Lily frowned. "Why not?" Dave forced a tight smile. "Because I didn't come here today as him." They exchanged a glance. "What do you mean, Dad?" Dave swallowed hard. And for the first time, the truth hovered, dangerously close to the surface. The afternoon had begun with sunshine. But Marine Corps bases have their own way of teaching lessons. And on this day, the sky decided no one was going anywhere. Dark storm clouds rolled over Paris Island like smoke drifting across a battlefield. Thunder cracked, sharp and sudden. A gust of wind cut through the parade deck, sending programs fluttering and families scrambling for cover. A loudspeaker blared. Attention! Severe weather incoming. All personnel and visitors, please move indoors immediately. In seconds, the orderly graduation dissolved into hurried footsteps, umbrellas snapping open, and Marines directing families toward the nearest shelter. Dave, Lily, and Hannah turned toward the reception hall, unaware that fate was already pulling strings behind their backs, unaware that Avery was being pulled there too, unaware that the past they shared, the past they avoided, the past they feared, was about to lock them in the same room with no way out. Rain hammered the roof like 1,000 tiny drums. Thunder rattled the light fixtures. Wet families and new Marines crowded the space, filling it with laughter, chatter, and the smell of damp uniforms. Avery Cole stepped inside last, shaking rain from her cover. She tried to blend in among the officers, but her eyes kept drifting, searching, pulling, drawn to someone she didn't want to admit she was looking for. And then, she saw him, Dave Carter, pushing the mop bucket aside so it wouldn't be in the way, standing a little too still, a little too quiet, with grief tucked behind his eyes. He looked up at the same moment she stared at him. Their eyes held. Something passed between them. Heavy, electric, impossible to describe. Not attraction. Not yet. Something deeper. Older. Like the universe had waited years to push these two souls into the same room. Avery swallowed, forcing herself to look away. She was a captain. He was, well, she didn't know what he was. A janitor? A father? A man with a tattoo from a battlefield she couldn't forget? Or something else entirely? She didn't want to find out. And she wanted to find out more than anything. A sudden announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, a Marine lieutenant called out. The base is under temporary lockdown due to lightning strikes. The storm should pass in about an hour. Please remain indoors. An hour. An entire hour. Avery felt her chest tighten. She was stuck in the same room as the man connected to the most traumatic memory of her life. Dave heard the announcement too. He felt a knot form in his throat. An hour. An hour trapped with the woman who knew the part of him he buried so deep even his daughters didn't know. The twins, energized from graduation and unaware of the emotional landmines around them, spotted Avery near a coffee urn. Hannah nudged Lily. That's the captain who talked to Dad earlier. Lily smiled politely and walked over first. Ma'am, thank you for being here today. Avery straightened instinctively. Years of discipline. Years of structure. Of course, Marine. It's an honor. Hannah joined in. You seemed, concerned about our dad. Is everything okay? Avery froze. She felt her pulse spike. She didn't know how to answer that. Not without ripping open the past in front of strangers. But in the silence that followed, Dave stepped in. He approached quietly, hands in his pockets, eyes soft and tired. It's okay, girls, he said gently. Captain Cole and I just knew someone in common. Avery looked at him. He looked back. The twins looked between them with confused curiosity. Lily tilted her head. Dad, are you sure you're okay? Dave forced a smile. The kind fathers give when they're breaking a little inside. Yes, sweetheart. I'm okay. But Avery heard the quiet tremble behind the words. The same tremble she heard in Fallujah when Michael whispered, Take care of them, take care of my family. A massive crack of thunder echoed overhead. Avery flinched. Just slightly. Barely noticeable. But Dave noticed. And she knew he noticed. She exhaled, trying to steady herself. Dave stepped closer, his voice low. You all right? Avery almost laughed. A hollow, humorless laugh. No, she admitted softly. Not even a little. It was the first honest thing she had said aloud in months. With nowhere else to go. With the storm trapping them inside. With the past tightening its grip around their throats. They moved to a quiet table in the corner. Dave, Avery, and the ghosts neither of them could shake. The twins went to mingle with friends, leaving the two adults sitting across from one another. The air between them heavy with unspoken truth. Avery folded her hands, inhaling slowly. I didn't expect to see that tattoo again, she whispered. Dave nodded. I didn't expect anyone alive to recognize it. Lightning flashed outside. The room hummed with nervous chatter. Avery leaned forward, her voice barely audible. You look like him, you know. Your brother. Dave's breath caught. Avery continued. He saved my unit. He saved me. But I never got to tell his family. I never got to explain what really happened. Dave's jaw tightened. Avery's fingers curled against the table. And then, quietly, painfully, honestly, I've carried that guilt for years. The storm outside raged harder, but the storm between them softened, just a little. Thunder rolled again, shaking the reception hall's windows. Families huddled near serving tables. Officers exchanged stories, and new Marines laughed through their nerves. But at the small table in the corner, the world had narrowed to two people who should never have met, and yet desperately needed to. Dave and Avery sat across from each other, hands clenched, breathing slow, eyes locked on ghosts only they could see. Between them lay a truth neither was ready to touch. But the storm outside insisted they face. Avery traced the rim of her cup with trembling fingers. "You asked if I knew your brother," she whispered. "I didn't. Not the way a family knows someone. But I knew the kind of Marine he was." Dave swallowed. A tiny, painful motion. Avery continued, voice cracking. "He wasn't just brave. He wasn't just good. He was steady. Steady in the kind of chaos that makes other people crumble." She closed her eyes, remembering the heat, the dust, the screams. He told jokes under fire. He carried 2 injured Marines on his back. He fought like he didn't care about himself at all. Dave's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. It was Michael. Exactly Michael. A man who loved fiercely and lived fearlessly. A man who gave more than anyone asked. A man Dave missed every day. The flashback Avery never told anyone. Her voice softened, low and haunted. "The day we were ambushed. We were trapped behind a burnout Humvee. Insurgents on the rooftops. Ammo running low. Smoke everywhere." Her fingers trembled against the table. "I was shaking so hard I couldn't reload my weapon." Dave's head lifted. Avery Cole. Captain Avery Cole, the iron-willed Marine who terrified subordinates with her precision. Admitting she was afraid? She nodded at his unspoken question. "I was young. Too green to be there. Too stubborn to admit it." A small, broken laugh escaped her. "Your brother noticed. He crawled over to me. And he said." Her voice faltered, but she forced the words out through her trembling lips. "If you're scared, kid, that means you're still alive." Dave covered his mouth with his hand. Michael's words. Michael's heart. Michael's way of gifting courage to everyone around him. Avery continued. "And then he gave me something I never told anyone about." She lifted her sleeve, revealing a faint mark on her forearm. Not a tattoo, just ink rubbed against skin long ago. A matching symbol to the one on Dave's arm. Dave's breath caught. "He marked you." It came out as a whisper. Avery nodded. He pressed his arm to mine and said, "If you make it home, find my family. Tell them I kept my promise." Dave's eyes burned. Avery's voice dropped. "But I didn't find you. I didn't tell you. I ran from everything that reminded me of that day, including him." Her eyes glistened with tears she rarely allowed herself to shed. "I'm sorry. Barely air. Barely sound. But heavy enough to break mountains." Dave slowly reached across the table, hesitated, then gently placed his hand over hers. The connection was instant. Warm, human, painful, necessary. Lily collapses, just as Avery's fingers curled under his. Just as truth finally bridged the 20-year gap between them. A sharp gasp cut through the noise. "Lily! Lily, hey, somebody help!" Hannah's panicked voice shot across the room. Dave jerked to his feet. Avery spun toward the sound. And there, by the punch table, Lily Carter, soft-hearted, thoughtful Lily, was crumpling to the ground, eyes fluttering, skin pale. Dave's heart seized. Lily hit the floor. Avery was already sprinting, Marine reflexes kicking in, sliding to her knees beside the trembling recruit. "Lily, stay with me." Hannah knelt on the other side, shaking, gripping her sister's hand. Dave stumbled forward, eyes wide with terror. "Baby Lily, look at me." Avery checked her pulse. Fast. Too fast. Her breathing shallow. "Dehydration," Avery said quickly. "Exhaustion." She pushed herself too hard in the heat. Dave's voice cracked. "She does that. She takes care of everyone but herself." Avery looked up into his eyes. Compassion. Recognition. Understanding. "She's her father's daughter," Avery whispered. Dave froze. Those words struck deeper than she knew. "Help me get her legs elevated," Avery ordered. Dave obeyed without hesitation. Hannah supported Lily's shoulders. Avery pressed her hand to Lily's forehead, voice steady and calm. "You're okay, Marine. Focus on my voice. You're safe." Lily blinked, dazed. Hannah. Dad. Dave stroked her hair. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. Avery leaned closer. Listen to me, Lily. Your body just needs rest. You're not in danger. Lily's breathing slowed. Color returned to her cheeks. Her fingers unclenched. Dave exhaled a shaky breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Avery placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. She's going to be fine. Dave looked at her, really looked at her. Strong, steady, compassionate. Everything Michael once was. Everything Dave had needed for a long time. As Lily rested, leaning against Hannah, Dave and Avery stood a few steps away. The storm outside softened into rain. The thunder moved farther out to sea. The reception hall grew quieter, calmer, almost peaceful. Avery crossed her arms softly. You raised two incredible women. Dave wiped his eyes. I tried. Not sure I always did it right, but I tried. Avery smiled, softly, sadly. Michael would be proud. Dave closed his eyes, absorbing those words like medicine. When he opened them, something had changed. Not in Avery, not in the room, but in him. A wall he built years ago finally had a crack. Dave, her voice was almost a whisper. I need to tell you what really happened the day your brother died. Dave looked at her, not with dread, not with anger, with readiness, with strength, with the courage Michael had given him long ago. He nodded. Tell me. The storm outside had quieted into a gentle drizzle, tapping softly against the reception hall windows like fingertips urging the world to listen. Inside, the chaos of the earlier commotion faded to murmurs and scattered conversations as families slowly relaxed again. But in a quiet corner, away from the laughter, away from the noise, Dave and Avery stood on the edge of a truth 20 years overdue. Lily rested with Hannah's arm around her shoulders, breathing steadily now. A Marine medic had checked her. She was fine. Hydrated, stable, resting. So for the first time, Dave could exhale. And for the first time, Avery could speak. Avery begins her confession. She took a breath. Deep, steady, the kind of breath Marines take before stepping into the unknown. Dave, there's something I never told anyone. Not my commanding officers. Not the review board. Not even myself. Not really. Dave nodded gently. I'm listening. Avery clasped her hands behind her back, a habit drilled into her bones from years of discipline. But her voice trembled. Your brother didn't die because he was careless. He didn't die because he ran out of options. He didn't die because he panicked. She looked Dave straight in the eyes. He died because I froze. Dave's face tightened. He didn't interrupt. Didn't pull away. Didn't let judgment cross his features. Because he knew what we did. He knew what split-second decisions could cost. He knew the impossible weight Avery carried. Avery swallowed hard and continued. I was supposed to cover him. My orders came in scrambled over the radio. I hesitated for less than a second, and he stepped in front of me. Her voice cracked. He took the bullet meant for me. Dave bowed his head, not in anger, in grief, in reverence, in acknowledgement. Avery blinked tears away. And because I survived, because I came home, I convinced myself I'd stolen the life your family should have had. Dave finally spoke. Avery. His tone was not sharp, not angry, not bitter. Soft, weighted with understanding. You were a kid, he said quietly. You were scared. You were human. Avery bit her lip. Marines don't freeze. Dave stepped closer. Humans do. She looked up at him. And for the first time, someone wasn't condemning her. Someone wasn't reminding her of her failure. Someone was giving her something she didn't believe she deserved. Forgiveness. Dave leaned on the table, staring at the rain-soaked window. I spent years being angry at the world for what happened, he said. Then I buried that anger so deep it almost turned into something worse. Silence. Avery listened, intently, almost breathlessly. My brother wasn't just a Marine, Dave continued. He was my best friend, my protector. The guy who talked me out of doing stupid things, and sometimes talked me into them. A small smile tugged at Avery's lips, fragile but real. Dave went on. When he died, I told myself nobody else could understand what we lost. I never imagined the person who understood it best was out there carrying the same burden. Avery inhaled sharply. He understood. She wasn't alone. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Avery sat first, carefully, thoughtfully. Dave sat across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The air between them had shifted. No more hostility. No more fear. No more pretending. Just truth. Just connection. Avery spoke softly. There were days I wished it had been me instead of him. Dave's voice came out deep and firm. Don't say that. It's true, Avery whispered. You don't know what's true for him, Dave replied. But I do. Avery looked at him, waiting. Dave's eyes softened. My brother didn't save you because he thought you were weak. He paused. He saved you because he thought you were worth saving. Tears slipped down Avery's cheeks. For years, she'd carried a guilt that was never hers to bear. Now, sitting across from the last living piece of Michael Carter, she felt her chest loosen, her shame ease, her heart remember how to beat without fear. Suddenly, Hannah shouted from across the room. Dad, Lily wants water. Dave let out a breathy laugh. Soft. Tired. Real. Avery smirked. Duty calls. He chuckled. Being a dad never stops. She tilted her head. You're good at it. Dave's smile faded into something more sincere. I try. Some days, they're the only reason I get out of bed. Avery's eyes warmed. Not just with sympathy, with admiration, with something new beginning to bloom beneath the ashes. She nodded slowly. They're lucky to have you. Dave held her gaze. So are the Marines under you. Avery blinked. Surprised by the compliment. Flustered, even. It was the first kind thing someone had said to her about her service in a long, long time. Families began leaving as officers announced the all clear. The sun broke through the clouds in soft, golden streaks. But Dave and Avery remained at their table, a pocket of stillness amid the movement. The twins walked over, smiling again, energized. Hannah spoke first. Dad, we're going to take pictures outside. Lily nodded, looking better. Avery smiled. That's great, Marines. Enjoy it. The twins left, laughing. Dave turned back to Avery. So, what happens next? Avery's breath hitched. Because she didn't know. Because she wasn't used to not knowing. Because the truth was, something inside her wanted whatever came next. Something inside her wasn't ready to walk away. And something inside him felt the same. But before she could answer, a voice echoed across the room, loud and intrusive. A voice that would change everything again. The storm outside had calmed, but inside the reception hall, another storm was moments from exploding. Dave stood beside Avery, still absorbing her confession, still feeling the strange new warmth of connection forming in places he thought were dead forever. Avery felt it too. It scared her. It steadied her. It made her want to stay. But fate, relentless, unpredictable, always watching, had one more test waiting, and it arrived wearing a press badge. A man in his mid-40s, with a camera slung over his neck and an eager gleam in his eye, stepped toward them. He wasn't supposed to be inside during the storm lockdown, but some people ignored rules when chasing headlines. Excuse me, he said, forcing a friendly smile. Are you Dave Carter, the CEO of Carter Logistics? Dave stiffened. Avery's head snapped toward him. Hannah, across the hall, froze mid-laugh. Lily blinked in confusion. Dave inhaled sharply. The kind of inhale that means everything is about to go wrong. He opened his mouth to deny it. But the reporter continued, louder. I thought so. I recognized you from Forbes. Families turned. Officers turned. Even new Marines turned. The humble janitor disguise evaporated in seconds. Avery stared at him. You're a billionaire? Dave swallowed. I didn't want anyone to treat my daughters differently. I just wanted to be their dad today. But the reporter wasn't done. He leaned in, voice dripping with excitement. And you're speaking privately with a Marine captain, right after your daughter collapsed, right after some kind of confrontation outside on the parade deck. Avery's spine straightened. Here it was. Danger. The kind she couldn't shoot. The kind she couldn't outrun. The kind that ruins lives quietly. The reporter's camera blinked red, recording. So tell me, he said loudly. What exactly was the argument about? Did Captain Cole mishandle your daughter? Did something go wrong in the graduation protocol? Or does your disagreement go deeper than that? Avery's breath caught. Dave's heart dropped. Because the reporter wasn't asking question. He was crafting a story. A dangerous one. One that could destroy Avery's career. One that could twist everything he and Avery had just healed. Dave stepped forward. There was no argument, he said firmly. No misconduct. No problem. The captain is. But the reporter cut him off. Sources in this room say you raised your voice. That Captain Cole grabbed you. That tension escalated, and your daughter fainted minutes later. Avery's eyes widened. That's not true. None of that is. The reporter angled the camera toward her. So, Captain, what exactly is your relationship with Mr. Carter? Why were you holding his arm earlier? Why were you in a private corner together? Is this? Click. Flash. He took a picture. Dave grabbed the camera instinctively. Stop, he growled. You don't get to twist this. But the reporter smirked. I already have what I need. Years of Marine training kicked in. Her voice rose, sharp, authoritative. Put the camera down and back away. You're interfering with personnel and fabricating claims. If you publish anything misleading, I will. But he stepped closer, pointing the camera at her face. So you admit there's something suspicious? Avery's lips parted. But no words came. Her chest tightened. Her throat constricted. This wasn't combat, but she felt like she was back in Fallujah again. Outnumbered, surrounded, helpless to stop an attack that wasn't physical, but would leave scars just as deep. Dave saw the terror flash across her eyes. No, not terror. Shame. The same shame she carried from the battlefield. And the reporter was about to weaponize it in front of the entire hall. Dave stepped in front of Avery, shielding her from the camera. His voice was calm. Too calm. You're done here. The reporter scoffed. You don't get to decide that. Dave leaned closer, eyes cold. Actually, I do. The reporter's expression faltered. He knew who Dave was now. He knew the power behind the name Carter Logistics. He knew the doors that name could close. But still, the seed of damage was planted. In the murmurs around the hall. In the whispers that spread too fast. In the picture he'd already taken. In Avery's trembling breath. Avery whispered, Dave, please. Just let him leave. He turned to her slowly. What he's implying could wreck your career. Avery forced a small, broken smile. Marine careers, and every day. I'm not scared of that. Her eyes glistened. What she was scared of was something she didn't dare admit. That this moment, with this man, meant something. Something real. Something fragile. Something that could break. And then, just when the room seemed to settle, the reporter spoke one more sentence. A sentence that detonated everything between Dave and Avery. Funny, some people are saying Captain Cole was involved in your brother's death in Fallujah. Care to comment on that? Avery froze. Dave froze. The entire reception hall seemed to fall silent. Avery's face drained of color. Dave's breath hitched. A reflex he couldn't hide. The reporter smirked. So it is true. Avery stepped back as if she'd been stabbed. Dave opened his mouth. To correct it, to deny it, to protect her. But his voice failed before any words emerged. And in that split second of silence, Avery Cole saw something devastating in Dave's eyes. Not blame, not anger, something worse. Uncertainty, the tiniest flicker of doubt. Enough to shatter her. Enough to send her back 20 years to the moment Michael died. Back to the guilt she tried to outrun. Back to the belief she didn't deserve to live. Avery whispered, raw, hollow, breaking. I knew this was a mistake. Then she turned, and she walked away. Fast, shoulders stiff, jaw trembling, eyes burning. Dave reached after her. Avery, wait. But she didn't. And this time, she didn't look back. The reception hall slowly emptied after the storm, but the wreckage left behind wasn't on the floor. It was in two people's hearts. Dave stood frozen where Avery had left him, the reporter's cruel question echoing in his mind. And Avery's broken whisper. I knew this was a mistake. Those words cut deeper than any accusation. Across the room, Lily and Hannah watched their father with growing concern. They'd seen him hurt before. They'd seen him angry, exhausted, overwhelmed. But this was different. This was heartbreak. Avery Cole walked quickly down the hallway outside the reception hall, her heels striking the tile in sharp, uneven beats. She didn't care where she was going. She didn't care who saw her. She only knew she needed to escape. The truth had finally surfaced, and it destroyed everything she'd just begun to hope for. In a small corridor near the armory office, she stopped. Her hand pressed against the wall. Her breath shook. Her vision blurred. For years, she'd built herself into a fortress. Steel, control, discipline. But Dave Carter, the quiet father, the disguised billionaire, the younger brother of the man who saved her life. He had slipped past every wall she'd built, and now she felt everything collapsing. Her whisper cracked like thin glass. Michael, I'm sorry. The guilt surged again, violent and cold. She had carried it alone for 2 decades, and she was prepared to carry it for 20 more. But then Dave arrived. Like fate dragging up old wounds she never healed. Like a mirror she never wanted to look into. Now, the reporter's false accusation, and the flicker of uncertainty in Dave's eyes, felt like confirmation. Not that she caused Michael's death, but that she didn't deserve anything good that came after. Especially not him. Back in the reception hall, Hannah approached Dave first. "Dad?" she whispered. "What happened?" Dave shook his head. I don't know. Misunderstanding. Lies. Timing." He swallowed. "Avery walked away because she thinks I believe that reporter." Lily stepped forward. "Well, did you?" Dave turned sharply. "No." Then softer. "No." But I hesitated. That was enough to hurt her. He closed his eyes, guilt sinking deep into his bones. "I've spent years avoiding everything about Michael's death. Avoiding the pain. Avoiding the memories. Avoiding anyone who knew him." He exhaled shakily. "And she paid the price for my fear." Lily touched his arm gently. "Dad, maybe you should go after her." Hannah nodded. "Before she leaves this base thinking she ruined your life." Dave looked at his daughters. 2 Marines. Strong. Brave. Unwavering. Just like their uncle. Just like their father needed to be. He straightened his shoulders. "You're right." Hannah grinned. Lily squeezed his hand. "Then go," Lily said softly. "We've got each other. You go find her." Dave nodded once. Then he started walking. Dave hurried down the hallways, scanning every corridor, listening for footsteps, searching faces. He checked classrooms, break rooms, offices. Nothing. His heart pounded harder with every empty hallway. Then, a Marine corporal pointed toward the armory corridor. "Sir." Captain Cole headed that way. Looked upset. Dave didn't waste a second. He sprinted. He found her standing near a window, staring out at the clearing skies. Her shoulders were tight. Her eyes were rimmed red. She didn't turn when he approached. "Go away, Dave," she said quietly. "You don't owe me anything." Dave stopped a foot behind her. "You're right," he said softly. "I don't owe you anything." Avery inhaled sharply, hurt flickering across her face. He continued, "But I do owe my brother something. And I owe myself something too." She turned slightly, just enough to see him from the corner of her eye. "Dave?" "No," he cut her off gently. "Let me say this. Please." Avery hesitated, then slowly. She turned to face him fully. Her eyes were as stormy as the sky had been an hour ago. Dave stepped closer. "Michael didn't die because you froze. He died because he chose to save you." Avery looked down. "Don't sugarcoat it." "I'm not." Her chin trembled. "He deserved better." "So do you," Dave whispered. A tear slipped down Avery's cheek. But Dave wasn't finished. "When that reporter said your name, something hit me. Hard." Avery looked up, confused. Dave continued. "When Michael was deployed, he wrote letters. Most I never read. Too painful at the time. But when I realized who you were, I went to my car. I grabbed the folder." He held up a worn envelope. Avery's breath caught. Dave opened it carefully. Inside was a page with Michael's handwriting. Dave read aloud. "If anything happens to me, tell the young Marine with the steady eyes she's meant for more than war. Tell her she made me proud. Tell her she's the bravest kid I ever met." Avery covered her mouth, tears streaming. Dave stepped closer. "And here's the part one never understood until today." He pointed to the final line. "I hope someone takes care of her someday." Avery shook her head, overwhelmed. "I don't need taking care of." "I know," Dave whispered, brushing a tear from her cheek. "But maybe you need someone who understands why you don't." Her breath caught. The hallway felt too small. The world felt too quiet. Her heartbeat felt too loud. Dave continued. "I hesitated earlier, not because I doubted you, but because I finally realized. You're connected to a part of me I've been too scared to face." Avery blinked slowly, letting his words sink in. "But I'm not scared anymore," he said. "Not of Michael's memory. Not of the truth. Not of you." Avery's lips parted. "Dave," he took her hand gently. "I'm choosing to be here. With you. If you'll let me." Avery stared at him, hope and fear battling in her eyes. Then, slowly, cautiously, she nodded. "I'll let you." The storm had passed. Paris Island glistened under a late afternoon sun, golden and forgiving. Puddles shimmered across the pavement like tiny mirrors reflecting a world made clean again. And inside that quiet corridor, where Avery Cole had once stood alone with decades of guilt, She now stood facing something she never expected. Hope. Real, solid, terrifying hope. Dave still held her hand. Not with force. Not with uncertainty. But with a steadiness that reminded her of his brother. No, a steadiness that was his own. Avery exhaled softly. Dave, what happens now? He smiled. A small, honest smile that softened every line of his face. Now, we go forward. The past stays part of us, but it stops controlling us. Avery blinked slowly, letting the words warm her from the inside. For 20 years, she believed she didn't deserve peace. Now she realized peace wasn't something you deserve. It's something you choose. And today, she chose Dave. Footsteps approached quickly. Then Lily and Hannah rounded the corner in their dress blues, joyful and energized again. Dad, Hannah called out. We're ready for pictures. Oh. She slowed when she noticed Avery. Lily smiled knowingly. Avery straightened her posture reflexively, but Lily spoke first. Captain Cole, thank you for helping me earlier. And for, I don't know, being here today. Avery softened. I was lucky to be here. Hannah nudged her sister and whispered, loud enough for both adults to hear. Dad's lucky too. Dave's ears turned red. Avery looked at him, amused. I see your daughters are just as subtle as you are. Oh, trust me, Dave replied. They get that from their mother. A pause. A warm one. Lily stepped closer to Avery. You can take pictures with us, she said. If you want. Avery blinked. She wasn't used to invitations. She wasn't used to belonging. But somehow, these two young Marines saw her clearly. I'd like that, Avery whispered. Hannah grinned. Good. Because Dad's about to cry if we take too long. Dave held up his hands. Hey, none of that. But he was smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in years. Out on the parade deck. Cleansed by rain, glowing in sunlight. They took photos in every formation possible. Lily hugging Avery. Hannah saluting Avery. Dave standing between his daughters, overwhelmed with pride. Avery standing beside Dave. A little too close. A little too comfortable. And not minding at all. In one photo, Avery glanced at Dave. He glanced back. Their shoulders brushed. Lily whispered to Hannah. Oh, they're in trouble. Hannah whispered back. The good kind. After the pictures, as crowds began drifting toward parking lots, Dave and Avery walked along the edge of the parade deck. The puddles reflected the last hints of the storm. The air smelled like wet asphalt and new beginnings. Avery spoke first. You know, this morning, I thought today would be simple. Ceremony. Duty. Go home. Dave chuckled. I thought I'd mop a floor in peace. Avery laughed a real laugh. Light. Warm. Rare. Then Dave stopped walking. Avery turned to him. Her expression softened. What is it? She asked gently. Dave hesitated, but just for a moment. Then he rolled up his sleeve, exposing the tattoo, the symbol that started it all, the mark of a promise made in fire and fulfilled in fate. Avery touched it softly, reverently. Dave whispered, My brother brought you into my life long before today. Avery swallowed hard. And I ran from that. Dave shook his head. You didn't run. You survived. And now you're here. Her eyes glistened. So are you. He reached for her hand. She let him hold it. Dave, she said quietly, I'm not good at this. Not relationships. Not feelings. Not letting people in. Dave stepped closer. Maybe you don't have to be good at it. Maybe you just have to be honest. Avery's breath caught. And what if I get scared again? Dave smiled softly. Then we face it together. You, me, and two Marines who will absolutely keep us in line. Avery laughed again, but tears slid down her cheeks. Not of grief. Of release. Of healing. Of choosing something she had never chosen before. Love. She leaned her forehead against his chest. Dave wrapped his arms around her. Steady, warm, safe. And on that parade deck, at the end of a storm-filled day, two broken pieces finally fit together. Not perfectly, not easily, but truthfully. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the twins ran ahead toward the parking lot. Come on, Dad, Lily called. Hurry up, Hannah added. Dave looked at Avery. You ready? Avery nodded. For the first time, yes. They walked forward together, side by side, hand in hand, toward a future neither expected, but both desperately needed. A future built not on guilt, or grief, or fear, but on the quiet, powerful truth that love, real love, often arrives last, just when the heart is finally ready. Clapperboard Epilogue CTA. Engage the audience. Before you leave this story, we have one final question for you. Sparkles, do you believe that love can grow from the deepest wounds? Have you ever found connection in the most unexpected place? Tell us in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs today.